Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Nipleyuns, and this is another casual Kuntarkis recorded from his car as he waits for his son at school. And the topics vary, but it starts with Kuntarkis sharing the story of a phone conversation he received while on holiday.
And I just laid down on the lounge, looking at the beautiful ocean, just closing my eyes, and the phone rang. And something sort of intrigued me to pick the phone up. I didn't think it was you. In fact, I knew it wasn't you. And I picked it up and I looked at it and I just answered it automatically, which normally I never do. And it was a gentleman from America. And he has been a Buddhist for 37 years. And he started being a Buddhist when he was a young man because his father and mother were Buddhists. And he apparently came across my site on spirituality. And he looked through about 19 sites, he said, and he came across mine towards the end. And he looked at it, and he said something pushed him to press on it, so he did. And he's reading on the website, all different things. He read about entrapment. He read about the Book of Knowledge, which really intrigued him. And then he said to me, "Are you a professor?" And I said, "No." He said, "And what are you?" I said, "I am an entity in the moment." And that blew him apart. That actually blew him apart. And the reason, this is interesting, the reason it blew him apart was in the book that he has, that he only just finished reading on Buddhism. It was a new book, and what it had is, I am an entity in the moment. Somebody asked Buddha that. And I found that intriguing because there is no information to my knowledge that Buddha actually ever wrote that on paper. So that's interesting. And he said, "How did you know to say that?" I said, "I say all sorts of unusual things." I said, when I explain something, most people find it hard to fathom. Other people find it so fascinating, they just want to know more. Or other people can't handle it because they don't want the truth. "What did you just say?" he said. "They don't want the truth." I said, "That's right." He said, "Interesting. My father used to say that all the time. They don't want the truth." He said, "You just said two things that really has shattered me in a very positive way." I said, "Oh, that's an interesting way of saying it." And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm just me. I am." And he said, "Do you believe in Jesus?" I said, "I did." He said, "Why did you say I did?" I said, "Well, you've got to look at it this way. Reincarnation has a purpose. But when that person, that entity, no matter who it may be, a simpleton or a genius or an inventor or a mechanic or a writer, when they pass over, they no longer exist. And there's no real reason to express what they're about in reality." He goes, "Oh, but do you believe in Jesus?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Oh, do you believe Jesus was real?" I said, "Absolutely, 100%. And he said, "Why would you say that?" I said, "Reincarnation." And he said to me, "So you're referring that to reincarnation?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Interesting." And then he asked me some questions going on and on about Buddha. So what I did, I said, "Do you want to know about Buddha? It seems that you have some empty pages." He said, "Yes, I have empty pages." I said, "Okay. So if I am allowed just to talk, you got time to talk?" He said, "Oh." He said, "I have all the time in the world," he said. "Talking to you, I know it's going to be something that's going to really hit me hard." I said, oh, thank you. So I started explaining all about Buddha from the moment he was born, and I cut a lot out, but from the moment he was born to the moment he took his last breath. And he never said one word And he said, I'm going to be truthful here. And I said, why is that? I recorded everything you said. Is that all right? I said, if you wish. You don't have an issue with it? I said, no. And then he said, who are you? I said, I am that I am. And he said, oh my God. He said, I got to go. He said, lovely talking to you. I may actually ring you again, but I've got to go and do some thinking. And he hung up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a very, 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 very interesting conversation.
How long do you think you spoke for?
Oh, 45 minutes.
Wow.
Maybe a bit more.
Hmm.
Well, he also listened to the podcast.
Did he really?
And he listened to the one about the incarnations of Jesus.
Right.
And he said that blew him away. He actually, I think his father had passed away the way he was speaking, but his mother's still alive. And he spoke to his mother on the phone because they're hundreds of kilometers away from each other. And he said he had nearly a 3-hour conversation with her. And she said, find out who he is. This has never happened before. Find out who he is. Well, he listened to the podcast and it just apparently, how would you say? He said it opened up doors that he could never open up. So he was a real seeker. And that was interesting. The reason I'm thinking about doing one called, which you said, the light, is because we're in really dark times, Michael. More darker than I feel that you actually realize. And I believe that we have tremendous amounts of warriors, heroes on this earth that also recognize how evil exists in such a strong way on this earth. And it's been biting at earth, especially the last 452 years, but probably a lot longer than that. It goes back probably several 100,000 years. And it's been growing and growing and growing and growing. And now its plan is so well established. That's the reason why the light within each of us, in so many, Michael, has been distinguished. And I believe people in a near future will be so desperately crying out for truth, for help, for the light, because we are beings of light. We are really beings of light, and we have existed within that light for eternity in our own evolution. And because this darkness has fallen upon earth so heavily, we have disconnected from our own reality of what the light is. And we don't even comprehend it the way we should, because only the light is going to set humanity free. And if I'm right, I believe hundreds of thousands of millions of people will be calling out for the light, for help. I really believe that will happen. And the only way we can burn out Satanism and its hold on humanity is through the light. Because I've proven it. I'm talking probably several hundred times throughout my life here on this planet that I've used the light, and I believe beyond all doubt, without the minutest point of doubt, I believed that the light is the only thing that will destroy evil, especially when it's not physical. You can destroy physical evil, but you can't destroy the spirit physically. So the spirit goes in and gets reincarnated and comes back again, just like it has been for thousands of years on humanity. People like Klaus Schwab He's been reincarnating probably maybe 100,000 times, 200,000 times over the last 928,000 years. And he's so powerful in his own evil that he's literally worked his way into the World Health Organization and has influenced all these people into his direction of thinking. And that's really heavy. And this is happening in many, many parts of the world. And if we don't recognize the light and start crying for the light in our hearts and bring the light out and send the light to destroy all the evil energy, we'll succumb. And the ones that don't will be slaughtered. Just like when Moses gave the order in the desert to kill, I think, 1911 men, women and children.
Because he was influenced to do that.
He was influenced by evil, probably Satanism, right? Alien Satanism. More than likely that's what it would have been. So it's happening in the same way today. They're trying to kill off humanity. I only read something today where David Sorensen was saying, or Steve Kirsch, how they're trying to digitalize the human brain, getting doctors to digitalize the human brain by inserting these microchips, and he's paying them lots of money. And by doing that, we then become their property and control us in every way. And so we have to be very careful, because their whole destiny, as I've said many times, is to get rid of 90% of humanity. And that is, from my heart, the honest truth.
And people, including me generally, we're attracted to better and faster and quicker and stronger technology. It's a real allure, isn't it? And yet we could be in the Stone Age and completely content, couldn't we?
Mate, you're right in what you just said, but there's one little point that I'll add to it. You, Michael, are technology.
Yes.
You are the technology. You don't have to have physical technology to be technology. You're a spiritual being, and you are limitless in your thinking through your thought consciousness added into your mind and your imagination. And what you can perceive, you can literally create and do. I mean, Michael, just an example. Yeah, okay, I've been around a lot longer than, say, a lot of people. But the point is, I've worked at what I am for the last 52 years on this human planet, because I've always believed that we are so much more. And now I can go into spirit world and create a physical body. I can literally grab a spirit and throw them into a dome that I created. So if that's the case, then why can't all of humanity grow consciously in the light by knowing their heart and destroying by projection of light all the evil Satanism? Hey, that's technology in a spiritual way.
Yeah, when the penny drops for more and more and more people, then there's a lot of positive that maybe you've not even seen, Kuntarkis, that it could actually really work out. Have you seen how we could all band together in around the world and actually make the world a better place soon?
Yes. I've said this to you a few times. I know that I'm being held back. Yes, some spiritual people will turn around, because they're the ones that are egotistical. They'll turn around and say, oh, you're holding yourself back. They have no awareness whatsoever when it comes to what exists upon this planet. If you told them that there's green reptilians controlling leaders on this earth, they would laugh at you. If you told them that the dark forces put thought projection and verbal words through your brain, which makes it think it's you, they would laugh at you. If you told them that there's an alien demented race of beings that no longer are physical, and they are literally Satanism, satanic, and they can control all the rich people. They're even turning them into cannibals. So it literally pulls their consciousness down to a point where it no longer exists. They would laugh at you. They have no awareness. That's the only way you can put it. But if I had the finance or found the backers and they believed in what was being expressed, they would make lots of money from those seminars. But that's not my purpose. My purpose is simply to express the truth, to express it so verbally, so dynamically, so much heartfelt energy within it, that it would awaken people. Maybe only 10% of, say, 1,000. But that 10% will grow and grow and grow in numbers. If you did seminars all around Australia, all around America, you would literally create one massive army of light. And they would go back to what they did many years ago, back in the 80s, where they did meditation and projected positive energies to all the evil that was on this earth, all the bad people. And it worked. But they no longer do it because they're probably all dead or something, or they're too old.
Yeah, I've certainly noticed that there's less of that kind of movement of beings. Yeah,
needs to be reawakened. And I feel like if we did a podcast, like an episode called The Light, and if we could get it out there to more people, I really believe people would say, "Oh my God." But you explain it in a way where you can explain what the light is, why it's there, why is it within us, why don't we recognize it, how to recognize it, how to feel and learn to grow in your heart, not your human ego of conditioning, not your fears of conditioning, how you can use it to balance the world, balance yourself, balance your family, balance your friends, balance your world, whatever. I think people would really, really take it on.
Yeah.
I used to have all these little seminars, and I'm talking, there was a lot of seminars that I actually presented over those years. And I remember one time I sat there and I was going through all this paperwork, and I don't know, I think I counted like well over 300 seminars. They're all small ones, mate. Anything from 5 people, and there was a couple there that were 140, 180. There were 60s, 70s, 90s, 30s, 20s, 15s, all that type of stuff. They just were all different. Just depends. And I did so many in Maryborough, which is in Queensland. It's a country town. I did, I think 5 in Cairns. I did, 30 on the Gold Coast over a period of time. Heaps in Brisbane, all over Brisbane, all different places in Brisbane. I did them down in Lismore, Byron Bay, Ballina, Bendemeer, Tamworth. So I did them what's that town called? Armidale, and also in Scone. So Cessnock in New South Wales. I did them all over the place. Yeah, I mean, I made money, but I didn't make a lot. All I cared about was getting knowledge out there and making enough financial money to say run another seminar. And that's what I did. I traveled a lot. So it wasn't the money. The money would always be good. The more money, the bigger the seminars. That's how I saw it. And it was the knowledge. But how far that knowledge went with those people is another thing. I had probably less than 0.5% out of the entire amount, Michael, that were very negative. Less than 0.5%. People loved it. They loved the spontaneous meditations, the talks. People were rapt that I could just answer any questions. There was no hesitation whatsoever. That's what really intrigued people. And yeah, it must have changed their lives in many positive ways.
Yeah, you changed my life, and I one of the seminars. You know what intrigued me right at the start of the seminar? You said something like, "Don't be thrown if you see just shimmering next to me on this side and next to me on that side. That's just my guides just being here." And I loved that. However you said that, I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yes.
We haven't spoken about, you do not speak about your guides very often.
No, I used to a lot. Guides change all the time. I find more intriguement now with guides of different realities, different dimensions. I mean, I've learned in such a small amount of time, physical time, about interdimensional travel and knowledge from, the Nipleyuns. I've learned so much, and I know there's so much more in me because I fell asleep. In that last one, I remember just sitting there, and he was looking at me, this entity, and he said, "It's okay. It's okay, Kuntarkis. Just place your head down on the soft pillow." And I looked down, there was a pillow there, but there wasn't a pillow a few seconds ago. And I just put my head down and I went off to it. And when I came back out of it, I just said to myself, wow, I gained so much knowledge even when I was asleep because my consciousness was picking it all up and storing it in my cellular memory. And I find now, if I just close my eyes for a few moments, I can sense it and feel doors opening within my cellular memory. And I can just extract out certain things. And that's becoming more relevant. It's not about controlling. It's about being in the moment.
We haven't captured your experience with the Nipleyuns yet, the most recent one.
No, we haven't. Oh, that's part of what I was telling you. That was part of it where the last one, when I went there, I ended up over a period of time, because I was there for quite a long time. And he took me to this place that was the most oddly shaped building I've ever seen. And I went inside, and it was massive, really massive. It's like it was space within space. And there were all these other Nipleyuns sitting down, much younger, not like children or anything like that, but just very much younger, you can tell it. And they all turned and stared at me, smiling. And I sat down on the left-hand side of them, and they just kept looking at me, and some of them were waving to me, and I waved back. And then the person who was presenting the program started talking, and that was it. You know?
You were there for study.
Yeah, I was there to study. I was there to learn, because I said I'd love to learn their ways, their knowledge of their existence, their knowledge of everything. So everything that they were and where they came from is actually within my cellular cells.
Wow.
They told me that. So that's going to come out of me. It's going to come out of me at some point.
This concludes another episode of Kuntarkis. If you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, he has a website which is etcconsciousness.com. There's info there about his books and the other things he can talk about. And maybe if you're interested in having a private consultation with him, which I highly recommend, then you can find out information there, as well as email him at kuntarkis@gmail.com, where you can ask us any questions. And please, if you have feedback for these episodes or suggestions for what you might like to hear about, different topics, etc., any questions and such, we'd love to incorporate that into our episodes. So please email kuntarkis@gmail.com. That's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.